Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. If you have ever stared at a patient's lab results, or maybe a tricky exam question, and felt completely lost in a sea of antigens and antibodies, you are in the exact right place. Okay, let's just dive right into this.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the alphabet soup problem.
We all know the classic textbook grid. It's a massive, intimidating table of positives and negatives for HBsAg, anti-HBs, HBeAg, IgM, and IgG. It literally looks like a nightmare of alphabet soup, right? And here's the brutal truth about it. Memorizing tables like that leads straight to exam panic. When you're under pressure, whether you're on the wards or taking your boards, rote memory is the first thing to fail. If you mix up just one single plus or minus sign, you get the entire diagnosis wrong. So we don't need a better memory for this. We need a system. We need to learn how to read these markers logically.
That brings us right to Section 2, Meet the Suspects, where we'll learn about our master mnemonic, SEMGS.
Say hello to your new best friend. It's a master mnemonic called SEMGS. Basically, it stands for Students Experiencing Medical Graduation Smile. It's incredibly simple, sure, but it organizes every single marker you need to know in exactly the right order. SEMGS. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down every single letter of this mnemonic so you don't miss a single point. By the end of this explainer, these 5 letters will honestly be the only cheat sheet you'll ever need.
Okay, let's start with the first 2 letters, S and E. I like to call these the invaders because they represent the actual virus parts. The first S stands for surface antigen, or HBsAg. Think of this as the outer coat of the virus. If this is positive in the blood, the patient is currently infected, period. Now, the E stands for E antigen, or HBeAg. This is your active replication marker. If E is positive, it means the virus is multiplying rapidly. Whenever you see an E, I want you to immediately associate it with extremely infectious.
Next up in the lineup, we have M and G. These are what I call the timeline trackers, and unlike the invaders, these are antibodies created by our own immune system. Specifically, they target the viral core, which is hidden deep down inside the virus. M stands for IgM anti-HBc. M is your first responder. A positive M indicates a recent acute infection. G, on the other hand, stands for IgG anti-HBc. This one is the veteran. It shows up later and sticks around for life. So whenever you see a positive G, think of it as a ghost of a past infection or a marker of a long-term chronic state.
And finally, we hit the last S in SEMGS. This is the savior. It stands for the surface antibody, or anti-HBs. This is the ultimate goal of the immune system. It neutralizes that outer coat we talked about earlier. If this surface antibody is positive and the original surface antigen is negative, your patient is officially saved. They are immune.
Let's move on to Section 3, the infection timeline. Now, what is beautifully predictable about this virus is how it actually unfolds in the body. When we look at an acute infection over a timeline of weeks, the markers don't just happen all at once. They arrive in a very specific, logical sequence. First, the outer coat of the virus arrives. Then, the virus starts replicating. And finally, our body's first responders show up to fight back. Let's really reinforce that chronological order, because once you understand this sequence, the pattern becomes absolute second nature. Number 1, HBsAg spikes first. The surface antigen tells us, yep, the infection has arrived. Number 2, HBeAg spikes next. The virus is actively multiplying, which means the patient is highly infectious. And number 3, IgM anti-HBc appears. Our immune system's first responder confirms that an acute event is actively happening right now.
But here's where things get a little tricky. This brings us to the infamous window period. There is a phase where the initial surface antigen has disappeared because our body's fighting it off, but our savior, the surface antibody, hasn't arrived in high enough numbers to be detected yet. If you only check the surface markers during this time, the test shows absolutely nothing. It's a really dangerous blind spot. But IgM anti-HBc remains high. So in this window period, looking at the core is literally your only hope. IgM is the single positive clue you're going to get during this phase.
Okay, let's transition over to Section 4, chronic states and traps.
First, let's talk about the chronic infection standoff. A chronic state simply means the virus never actually cleared. The baseline here is that the surface antigen remains positive for over 6 months. And because a lot of time has passed, our veteran G marker, IgG anti-HBc, is also positive. But you still have to figure out if this chronic patient is highly infectious or not, right?
Well, it's incredibly easy. Just look at the E markers. If HBe-IgG is positive, viral replication is high. If the patient has developed anti-HB antibodies instead, it means the body has suppressed that replication, resulting in low infectivity.
Now, this brings us to the ultimate exam trap. Examiners absolutely love this one. You have two patients. Both are immune, meaning both have a positive surface antibody, our savior. So how on earth do you tell a patient who naturally recovered from a real infection apart from a patient who just got the hepatitis B vaccine? The crucial point, the golden differentiator, is the core. The naturally recovered patient fought the actual complete virus, so their immune system saw the core. Because of that, they will have a positive IgG anti-HBC. The vaccinated patient, well, the vaccine only contains the outer surface coat. Their body has never even seen the core, so their anti-HBC will be completely negative.
So when you put all of this SMGS logic together into that big, scary table, it suddenly builds itself effortlessly. Let's think through it. Acute, surface antigen is positive, and our first responder IgM is positive. The window? Both surface markers are negative, but IgM is our single positive lifeline. Chronic? Surface antigen is still positive, but enough time has passed that IgM has swapped out for our veteran IgG. Immune from natural recovery? The savior, anti-HBs, is positive, and because they saw the real virus, the core IgG is also positive. Immune from a vaccine? The savior is positive, but everything else, including the core, is totally negative. See? Absolutely no memorization required. It is just pure logic.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, put it into practice. You've learned the blueprint, so let's test your new detective skills with a classic scenario. A 32-year-old medical resident undergoes routine blood work for credentialing. Her serology results are as follows. HBsAg is negative. Anti-HBs is positive. Anti-HBc IgG is negative. Anti-HBc IgM is negative. What is the most likely clinical status of this patient? A. Acute hepatitis B. B. Chronic hepatitis B. C. Natural recovery, or D. Post-vaccination immunity. I actually want you to pause this explainer for a second, use your SEMGS blueprint, look at the clues, and logically deduce the answer.
Okay, let's step through the logic and see exactly how to arrive at the answer without guessing. Step 1. We look at anti-HBs. It's positive. That's our savior marker. The patient is saved and immune. That immediately throws out options A and B. Step 2. To figure out exactly how she got immune, we look at the core, the anti-HBC. Step 3, we see that the IgG is negative. This means her body has never actually seen the real virus core. And that leads us perfectly to the solution. The correct answer is D, post-vaccination immunity. Because she has the protective surface antibodies but completely lacks any antibodies against the virus's core, her immunity absolutely must have come from the surface-only vaccine. See how empowering that is? When you follow the steps, the clinical picture practically paints itself for you. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. I really want to leave you with this final thought today. Please, don't memorize the alphabet soup. The very next time you are faced with a complex serology panel, just take a deep breath. Trust the SEMGS blueprint. Trust your logic. Because out on the wards, logic will always beat memorization. Honestly, if you can crack the code of hepatitis B with just a little logic, what other impossible medical charts could you decode next? Keep analyzing, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next one.